Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Tanvi Taneja. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar holds bilateral meeting with visiting Saudi counterpart in New Delhi. External Affairs Minister says Saudi's Vision 2030 and Viksit Bharat 2047 hold complementarities for industries to build new partnerships. US President-elect Donald Trump picks Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy to lead the newly formed Department of Government Efficiency. And at COP29, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres highlights the injustice faced by small island nations, says G20 accounts for around 80% of global emissions. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar met his Saudi counterpart Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud in the national capital on Wednesday. The two leaders met at the Hyderabad House in New Delhi. Following this, the two leaders deliberated for the second meeting of the Political, Security, Social and Cultural Committee of the India-Saudi Arabia Strategic Partnership Council. The leaders discussed the India-Saudi Arabia Strategic Partnership. In his opening remarks, Dr. S. Jaishankar highlighted that the India-Saudi Arabia partnership is focused on progress and the future, with both countries' visions, Saudi Vision 2030 and India's Vision 2047, offers complementary opportunities for building new industrial partnerships.
Our cooperation has now expanded to defense industry and exports as well. Our security cooperation has also grown steadily. We are collaborating in counter-terrorism, combating extremism, terrorism financing and drug trafficking. Saudi's Vision 2030 and Viksit Bharat 2047 hold complementarities for our industries to build new partnerships. Trade and investments are important pillars of our partnership, and we are strengthening them in new areas, including technology, energy, renewable energy, connectivity, health and education. We welcome efforts to promote culture, tourism and youth exchanges.
Saudi Arabia's Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud said relations with India are built on a long-standing foundation of cooperation and mutual respect.
Relations between the Kingdom and India are built on a long-standing foundation of cooperation and mutual respect. Our shared history, marked by centuries of trade and cultural exchange, has laid a strong foundation for the robust and solid partnership we have today. We recognize the importance of sustained coordinated efforts across all areas of cooperation. On regional and international affairs, we believe our coordination is essential. We will continue to align our positions on issues of shared concern, especially as they pertain to international peace, security and economic development. We are confident that advancing cooperation serves our mutual interests as well as benefits the region more broadly.
Moving on, Russia escalated its attacks on Ukraine's capital Kiev early Wednesday, launching waves of drones and missiles in its first combined aerial assault on the capital in more than 70 days. Ukraine's Air Force reported intercepting 4 missiles and 37 drones launched by Russia overnight over 8 regions of Ukraine. According to military, the attack involved missiles launched by strategic bombers as well as ballistic missiles. The large-scale bombardment comes at a critical moment on the battlefield. Russian forces are advancing in the east and concerns are growing over future aid after US President-elect Donald Trump's victory. Ukraine has for months been appealing to its Western allies to provide more air defense systems to fend off Russian attacks on cities and critical infrastructure. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken met his Ukrainian counterpart Andriy Sybiha in Brussels on Wednesday. Sybiha told Blinken that the war in Ukraine is at a critical juncture, emphasizing that Ukraine's defense cannot be paused and warning that appeasement will not be effective, especially with North Korean troops now being deployed to assist Russia. During a meeting with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte in Brussels, Blinken also stated that the deployment of North Korean forces to support Russia in the conflict requires and will receive a strong response.
North Korea is helping Russia in its aggression against Ukraine. At the same time, the support that Russia is providing to North Korea, potentially including support for its nuclear and missile programs, poses a threat to stability and security in the Korean Peninsula as well. So we're very focused on this. I think we see increasingly the indivisibility of security between the Euro-Atlantic theater, the Indo-Pacific and Asia-Pacific theaters, even the Middle East with the role that Iran plays.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken warned on Wednesday that the deployment of North Korean troops alongside Russian forces fighting on the Ukrainian border demanded a firm response. Blinken met NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte in Brussels on Wednesday at the start of a day of Brussels talks as the outgoing Biden administration sought to cement support for Ukraine ahead of Donald Trump's return as the U.S. president. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has questioned U.S. military support for Ukraine. He promised to quickly end Russia's war without saying how, raising concerns among U.S. allies that he could try to force Kiev to accept peace on Moscow's terms. On Tuesday, the U.S. State Department said North Korean troops had begun engaging in combat operations alongside Russian forces in the war with Ukraine. Blinken said both the leaders discussed the fact that North Korean forces have been injected into the battle.
Productive discussion today about our ongoing support for Ukraine in the face of an ongoing Russian aggression. As well, this added element now of DPRK, North Korean forces, injected into the battle. And now quite literally in combat, which demands and will get a firm response. We see increasingly the indivisibility of security between and among these different theaters, the Euro-Atlantic theater, the Indo-Pacific theater, the Middle East. And it's critical that we find ways to work ever more closely together. One of the things that NATO's done in recent years is to strengthen its partnership with Indo-Pacific partners, and we'll do more of that in the weeks and months ahead.
While on Israel-Gaza conflict, Antony Blinken said that the United States wants real and extended pauses in the fighting in Gaza so that assistance can get to people who need it. But the best way to help people would be to end the war. A 30-day U.S. deadline for Israel to take steps to address the humanitarian situation in Gaza expired on Tuesday. Washington said Israel was not blocking aid to Gaza and therefore not violating U.S. law. Donald Trump has strongly backed Israel since the October 7th attack by Hamas. The United States is opening a new air defense base in northern Poland on Wednesday as Warsaw seeks to reassure citizens that NATO guarantees their security amid jitters after Donald Trump's presidential election victory. The base is situated in the town of Redzikowo near the Baltic coast. It has been in the works since the 2000s. Warsaw says it shows Poland's military alliance with Washington remains solid, whoever is in the White House. The Kremlin has called it a bid to contain Russia by moving American military infrastructure nearer its borders. The U.S. base at Redzikowo is part of a broader NATO missile shield dubbed as Aegis Ashore, which the alliance says can intercept short to intermediate range ballistic missiles. On to America, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's cabinet is slowly taking shape as he named billionaire Elon Musk and former Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy to co-lead a newly created Department of Government Efficiency. Trump announced that the new department would work with the White House and Office of Management and Budget to drive large-scale structural reform and create an entrepreneurial approach to government never seen before. The work would conclude by July 4, 2026, the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Trump likened the efficiency effort to the Manhattan Project, the U.S. undertaking to build the atomic bomb that helped end the Second World War, while Musk promised transparency. Donald Trump has named more of his incoming team on Tuesday, including seasoned figures and hardliners. His administration is taking shape one name at a time. He announced his former Director of National Intelligence, John Ratcliffe, to lead the Central Intelligence Agency. while Trump has also said that he will nominate Fox News channel host Pete Hegseth to be the Secretary of Defense. Trump also announced Mike Huckabee as the US ambassador to Israel under his incoming administration. Meanwhile, US President-elect Donald Trump will make a triumphant return to the White House to meet President Joe Biden on Wednesday in the Republicans' first visit since departing amid a cloud of scandal nearly 4 years ago. Trump's meeting with Biden comes as he moves swiftly to name his top team, including Elon Musk, as head of a new group aimed at slashing government waste. Democrat Biden invited his sworn rival to meet in the Oval Office despite the fact that Trump, who has consistently refused to admit his 2020 election loss, never afforded Biden the same courtesy. Biden is expected to urge a smooth transition of power in the encounter at 1600 GMT and push for continued support for Ukraine. The Knesset passed in second and third readings a bill enabling the Interior Minister to deport the families of terrorists if the state can prove that they knew about the intention of their relative to commit the terror act but did nothing to prevent it. Here's a special report from our Russia TV correspondent.
Under this new law, parents, siblings, children and spouses of anyone Israel has accused of terrorism could be deported if it is established that they knew about the supposed activity and didn't act to stop them. Supporters of the legislation say that fear of expulsion could discourage potential attackers, though nearly half the votes were against the law.
Since when, in which part of the world, in which book of laws, they punish a person for something he didn't do? Why punish the brother, or the sister, or the nephew, or the mother, or the father?
The law has sparked major concerns within Israel's security agencies and Knesset legal advisors, who warned it might be seen as collective punishment by the country's high court.
Anyone who's a terrorist and people who support terrorism are not welcome in the country, and I think that's a basic right.
The law doesn't specify deportation locations, but media reports have suggested the Gaza Strip as a primary option. Exile terms would vary from 7 to 15 years for citizens and up to 20 years for residents.
The new law, passed by a significant but divided vote of around 60 to 40, has left politicians, lawmakers and the public deeply divided. Supporters argue it's a necessary deterrent, while critics warn it could lead to human rights violations and escalate tensions. The law comes into force immediately, and as the first cases are about to unfold, its true consequences could be more far-reaching than anyone anticipates. Maria Fanoshina, RT, reporting from Haifa and East Jerusalem.
Next, we take a look at other stories making news around the world. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz's minority government in Germany held its first weekly cabinet meeting on Wednesday since the government collapse. Germany is set to hold snap elections on 23rd February next year. Farmers gathered outside the European Commission in Brussels on Wednesday to protest the EU-Mercosur trade agreement, which they believe will flood the European market with low-cost, substandard products from Latin America, particularly Brazil and Argentina. Firefighters in Sicily sprang into action to help flood victims and stranded drivers after heavy rains triggered widespread flooding in Ecuriel near Catania. A daring rescue saved one person from a house inundated by swollen river. And a 65-year-old Egyptian carpenter, Sophie Yunus, is carrying forward a 200-year-old family legacy of woodworking in Old Cairo. His workshop is a vibrant hub, crafting a variety of wooden items and guiding a new generation of woodworkers in Egypt. You're with us on DD India Live, still to come on the show. Preparations underway as Sri Lanka readies to vote for a new parliament tomorrow. And British author Samantha Harvey bags the 2024 Booker Prize for her novel Orbital, a first for space novels.
राजा आओ आओ आयो। ये देखो मैसेज, कहते हैं वीडियो लाइक करके 500 रुपया रोज कमाओ। बस पहले थोड़ा पैसा देके ललचाएंगे, फिर बोलेंगे कि और कमाना है तो पैसा भरो। हम दिन भर चूना लगाते हैं और ये लोग हम ही को चूना लगाने चले हैं। पान वाला हूँ, मूर्ख नहीं हूँ। याद रहे, यूपीआई कहता है कि अगर कोई आसान कमाई का लालच दे तो कहो मैं मूर्ख नहीं हूँ।
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Tanvi Taneja. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar attended an event celebrating 75 years of diplomatic ties between India and the Philippines in New Delhi on Wednesday. Dr. Jaishankar emphasized that the strong relationship between the two nations is rooted in democratic values, pluralistic ethos and economic commonalities.
Our ties are rooted in democratic values, pluralistic ethos and economic commonalities. We are both nations deeply committed to upholding international law, norms and rules. Our trade today is steadily expanding, seeking to capture the potential provided by our high growth rates. Indian investments and projects in the Philippines have been robust and multiplying, especially in IT, pharmaceuticals, infrastructure, automobiles, textiles and FMCG.
Prime Minister of India Narendra Modi will be embarking on a three-nation visit beginning Saturday. Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri, while briefing media, said that Prime Minister Modi's visit to Brazil is for the 19th G20 summit to be held on November 18th and 19th.
Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi will be embarking on a three-nation visit on Saturday, the 16th of November. He'll go to Nigeria, to Brazil, and to Guyana.
In neighbouring Sri Lanka, preparations for the 14th November parliamentary elections are underway as the island nation prepares to vote to elect 225 members to its parliament. President Anura Kumara Dissanayake dissolved the parliament on 24th of September to clear the way for the general election, days after the Marxist-leaning leader was elected president on a platform for change. The election became necessary as Dissanayake had just 3 lawmakers in the outgoing parliament whose 5-year term was due to end in August 2025 and needed a fresh mandate to push his policies. Polling will be held on Thursday between 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. local time at over 13,400 polling stations. Counting of votes will begin at 4:15 p.m. with postal ballots first and ballot boxes after they are shifted to the counting centres. Next updates from the COP29 Annual Climate Summit. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres at COP29 told small island leaders that they had every right to be angry. He on Wednesday said that the G20 accounts for around 80% of global emissions and that this is an injustice which must end.
You have every right to be angry, and I am too. You are on the sharp end of a colossal injustice, an injustice that sees the very future of your islands threatened by rising seas, your people pounded by record hurricanes, your economies torn apart, and development gains left in tatters. This is an injustice perpetrated by the few. The G20 accounts for around 80% of global emissions, and it is an injustice that must end.
Albanian Prime Minister Edi Rama on Wednesday slammed world leaders for not listening to each other's speeches and said that good words spoken during the COP29 climate summit will not change anything. Nearly 200 nations have gathered at the annual UN Climate Summit in Baku, focused this year on raising hundreds of billions of dollars to fund a global transition to cleaner energy sources and limit the climate damage caused by carbon emissions. Speaking at the summit, Rama expressed his disappointment by saying that he had scrapped his prepared speech after seeing that televisions in the leaders' lounge were muted during other speeches.
I decided to leave aside my well-prepared speech because in the meantime, since yesterday, I was watching the silent TV screens in the Leaders' Lounge, where the organizers have thoughtfully added green plants above the comfortable couches. People there eat, drink, meet, and take photos together, while images of voiceless speeches from leaders play on and on and on in the background. To me, this seems exactly like what happens in the real world every day. Life goes on with its old habits, and our speeches full of good words about fighting climate change change nothing. Worse, as the UN Secretary General emphasized yesterday, carbon emissions actually increased last year from previous COP to this COP.
Speaking at COP29, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni called on Wednesday for a balanced energy mix that will include gas, biofuel and other resources during the transition to cleaner energy. She added that such efforts need to take into account reality, protecting nature with man at its core.
Global GDP will double in the next decade. This will boost energy consumption, also considering the increasing demand for artificial intelligence development. We need a balanced energy mix to enhance the transition process. We must use all available technologies, not only renewables, but also gas, biofuels, hydrogen, CO2 capture, and in future, nuclear fusion.
Meanwhile, major development banks have pledged to increase funding to poor and middle-income countries struggling with global warming at Baku's COP29 summit. But warnings are also coming from COP29 summit. In the latest warning from COP29 summit, global carbon dioxide emissions are set to hit record high in 2024. This will include emissions from burning fossil fuels other than industrial activities, from low-tech devices. The Global Carbon Budget Report published during the UN's COP29 Climate Summit in Azerbaijan said that global carbon dioxide emissions are set to total 41.6 billion metric tons in 2024, up from 40.6 billion tons last year. The bulk of these emissions are from burning coal, oil and gas. Those emissions would total 37.4 billion tons in 2024, up by 0.8% in 2023, the report said. The rest are from land use, a category that includes deforestation and forest fires. The report by more than 80 institutions was led by the University of Exeter in Britain. Such emissions increase will pull the world further off course from averting more destructive climate extremes, scientists said on Wednesday. On to India now. To provide a major boost to health infrastructure in the region, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi laid the foundation stone of EAM's Darbhanga in the eastern state of Bihar, worth over 1,260 crore rupees on Wednesday. The Indian Prime Minister also dedicated multiple developmental projects worth around 12,100 crore rupees in Bihar. EAMS will comprise a super specialty hospital or Ayush block, medical college, nursing college, among others. As Jharkhand prepares for its second phase of elections scheduled for November 20th, Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed an election rally in Sarath, Slamming Congress over appeasement, Prime Minister Modi said that the Congress party wants to end reservation by spreading hatred in society.
कांग्रेस ने आप लोगों की आंखों में धूल झोंकने का एक नया खेल खेला है। ये लोग अब एससी, एसटी, ओबीसी की जो सामूहिक शक्ति बनी है, एसटी कहते ही सारा आदिवासी समाज इकट्ठा हो जाता है, एससी कहते ही सारा दलित समाज इकट्ठा हो जाता है, ओबीसी कहते ही सारा पिछड़ा समाज एक हो जाता है। ये सामूहिक शक्ति जो बनी है ना, ये कांग्रेस वाले इसे तोड़ना चाहते हैं।
And as we wind up this edition of DD India Live, let's tell you who the winner of Booker Prize this year is. British author Samantha Harvey has won the 2024 Booker Prize, one of literature's highest honours, for her novel Orbital. The story follows a tense 24 hours for 6 astronauts from around the world aboard the International Space Station. The book explores the themes of loss, desire and the climate crisis. Harvey's work stood out to judges who unanimously awarded her the prize for its unique perspective and emotional depth. Along with the award, she received a substantial cash prize, which she plans to use for a new bicycle and a trip to Japan, a country close to her heart after having lived there. This win cements Harvey's place among English literature's most acclaimed voices. That's all for this edition of DD India Live. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on our different social media handles at DD India Live. And you can also download our DD India mobile app for quick news and updates on the go. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja. From all of us here in New Delhi, thank you for watching. Namaskar.